another topic in object-oriented programming, and that is polymorphism. So this is the ability to work with several types as if they are the same type. Moreover, the object's behavior will be different depending on their type. So let's take a look at an example on what this means. So basically, polymorphism allows you to kind of work with different classes, but they essentially are going to have the same type. So what does it mean to have like a different class and have the same type? Like, okay. So let's look back a little bit and let's define, what a type is, right? So we know that a type is basically, the type that we tell our object or our instance or whatever we're doing to be. So in this case, our type of emp1 is employee, and the same as the rest of these employees, right? They're all employee. They're all type of employee. So let's take a look at how kind of a company works, right? So in a company, there's like a base level to employees, right? There's an employee. Let's say when you first start out the company, you're just an employee and you don't really supervise anybody else. But let's say you have a supervisor, right? There's like a CEO, there's a supervisor, there's like a CTO. They're all employees essentially, right? They're all work at the same company. They're all employees of this company. But these different employees have, maybe they have different privileges to the company, right? So let's say if you're just an employee and you don't look over anybody, you just be like a regular employee. But let's say you're a supervisor, right? So a supervisor would have certain attributes to the supervisor. Maybe he can hire, maybe he can fire. He would also have the ability to view all of the employees that he supervises. So how would this work, right? How can we make the supervisor be a supervisor and an employee at the same time? So let's go in here and let's create our supervisor class. So, because we know it's going to be, a supervisor, we know they have different attributes from an employee. Let's take a look. So supervisor, I think I spelled it right. So of course, a supervisor has to have all of the attributes that, that an employee has, right? Maybe there is an issue here with this employee counter, but we'll take a look at that at the moment. What, a supervisor also has is like private, maybe like int, and, manages employees managed. Maybe there's like a list, a certain array of like employees that this person managed. Let's say it's like 3 employees or something like that. Right? So with that being said, we kind of have this class for the supervisor, and this person has all these attributes, right? They have a name, they have a date of birth, they have an employee ID, they have an employee ID counter, they have a start date, they have a social security number, and they have, employees managed. Again, kind of the same way we use our, alt insert, and we're gonna create our constructor, which is gonna do name, date of birth, start date, SSN, and that's all we're gonna do. Right? So the same way we did, our constructor for employee class, we kind of did the same thing for our supervisor class. Now, it's a little bit different. We have different attributes to the supervisor. We have this one new attribute, which, employees manage. And let's say we have like 2 more kind of methods here. So we have public, it's not going to be a static. It's going to be, maybe employee ID, public employee ID, or I should say int, fire employee, right? And then we have our public int hire employee, right? So this supervisor now has the ability to fire and hire employees. But like essentially at the base of how we set things up, a supervisor is really not an employee. A supervisor is a supervisor. is not related to this employee in any way, shape, or form, even though we said that, even though we have employees managed. Right, so how do we make a supervisor be an employee of the company, but have him be an employee at the same, like a supervisor at the same time, right? So polymorphism, this concept here is, the idea behind child classes. And oops, I didn't mean to open that. Sorry. And what child classes are is, well, we're going to actually talk about them. So in Java, to kind of avoid repetition of using, the name. So basically all the attributes that we have for our employee, right? We're going to avoid using that. And how do we do this? Well, first of all, let's get rid of all of it. And Java has this keyword that's called extends. And extends means we're going to basically extend the class. So imagine you have like, part of like your upper arm area where your bicep is, and the extension of your arm, the extension of like up to your elbow is going to be the rest of your arm, right? And then you have your hand, right? So essentially, in this case, a supervisor is kind of like our arm here up to like the elbow, and then our employee could be like, our arm here, our forearm. Maybe it will be like backwards, the employee will kind of be the base, right? Because every forearm, right, essentially, I know it's a bit weird the way I'm doing it. Every forearm is essentially has to have, this bicep area, right, to be kind of connected to the body. So think about it, in reverse, right? So, or not in reverse, in the way I'm going to explain it now is that our, up to our elbow here, this is going to be our employee class, right? So our employee class is kind of like connected to the base of our body, to the base of the company. And from there, we can extend this, part of like, of the arm, right, to the forearm. So now we have this other extension, right? And this extension is still part of the entire arm, but has like a different name, right? It's called the forearm. And it has different attributes, different muscles, different movements, right? So, and this is what our extends basically does. It extends like, kind of our capability, from just being an employee here to being a supervisor. We still have all of the, you still have all of the attributes of this arm, but you have your own attributes here. And the way we do this is we use the extends keyword, and we extend, the class that we pick. Now, okay. So now what we can actually do is it will now share all of these attributes of the supervisor class. So I'm going to get rid of all of these, or I'm going to comment up for now, and then I'll leave a comment when I upload the code. And we have this new attribute of, employees managed. So this is, the list of the employees that we manage. Instead of doing ints, I'm just going to do employee here. So we know it's an array of employees of size 3. Right? So this is kind of, sorry. Oops. So, kind of the same concept of creating an array of ints. We instead create an array of employee, right? So now we kind of create this. Comment this up for now. We have this issue of there's no default constructor available in employee. So what this means is that whenever we create this instance of our supervisor class, whenever we create an instance, or not this instance, because this is just a class, whenever we create an instance of our supervisor, we need to be able to call this constructor, which will ideally call the constructor of an employee, right? Because we said every supervisor is an employee. So what this means is that, when we create a supervisor, we essentially, we have to create an employee. And the way this works is through the super. And what this does, let me just type this in, is the super is going to be referring to the constructor of the employee class. So we can actually see this work. And let me go ahead and create, supervisor, sup1. And I'm just gonna copy this and create a supervisor. Okay, so if I go in and I debug, right? So essentially I created this new class of supervisor, right? I extended the employee class, right? So it extends the supervisor, or sorry, the supervisor extends the employee. So this tells us that every supervisor is still an employee. And by doing that, we have to, every time we create an instance of our supervisor, so the same way, the way we do it here, every time we do that, we have to call, the constructor of the employee. Because every supervisor is an employee, because of that, we have to, create an employee, right? So if I, jump into this, it's gonna, jump into this constructor. And through here, the super is going to call the constructor of the employee class. So we're going to jump in here, and then it's going to set all of these things. It's going to print, this whatever. It's going to exit, and then bang, it's done. So let's print out supervisor 1. So one thing I also forgot to mention is that, because, sorry, because we extended our employee class here, not only are we able to kind of use the constructor, use these variables, we're also able to use these methods that we created beforehand, right? So all of these methods, they were basically the same idea for supervisor. So it wouldn't really make sense to kind of recreate what they are in the supervisor class, because with the extents, with the ability to extend the class, to extend a class, not only are we able to get the attributes of the class, we're also able to get the methods of the class. And this is why I'm able to call, sup1.employee ID. And if I run it, we can see that, it prints out 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5, and this will be 6. So on top of that, we can also see the static variable. It's being incremented and it's being used properly by our supervisor class.